The HSS Pathfinder moved quietly through space, its engines humming softly as it traveled through an area no human had explored before. The ship was not large by military standards, but it carried the best technology Earth had to offer. Its hull gleamed under the light of distant stars, the blue and silver colors showing it was a ship of peace and science. Captain Daewon Kim stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewing window. He was a calm man with 20 years of space experience. His dark uniform fit perfectly, showing his rank with small silver pins on the collar. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he was known for being careful and smart. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said to no one in particular, eyes fixed on a nearby nebula that painted the blackness with purple and blue swirls. "Yes, Captain," answered Hajin, the ship's navigation officer. Her fingers moved quickly over her control panel, making small adjustments to their course. "We are now entering Sector 7B. All systems normal." The bridge was quiet as everyone did their jobs. 12 officers worked at different stations, monitoring everything from life support to weapons systems. Though the Pathfinder was mainly a science vessel, it carried defensive shields and some weapons. Nobody expected trouble, but space exploration always had risks. "Captain," called Hyun-ji Park from the communications station. She turned in her chair, looking concerned. "I'm picking up a signal. It's not one of ours." Kim walked to her station. "First contact?" he asked, trying to keep the excitement from his voice. "Possibly," Park replied. "The signal is strong. Whatever it is, it's getting closer." "Sound yellow alert," Kim ordered. "Not because I expect trouble, but let's be careful. Wake up our diplomats and scientists. They'll want to be here for this." Throughout the ship, soft yellow lights began to flash. The crew moved with more purpose now, but there was no panic. They had trained for this. Dr. Jian Song hurried onto the bridge, still fixing her uniform. As the ship's top diplomat, she had been sleeping when the alert sounded. "What do we have, Captain?" she asked, smoothing her hair. "Unknown contact," Kim replied. "We're about to find out if we're alone in the universe or not." On the main screen, a ship appeared. It was nothing like human designs. Where the Pathfinder was smooth and rounded, this ship was all sharp angles and what looked like weapons. It was 3 times larger than the human vessel. "They're scanning us," reported Security Chief Taemin. "Our shields are holding, but their technology is very advanced." "Open a channel," ordered Kim. "Standard greeting package." Park sent the message they had prepared for first contact: simple mathematical sequences, basic language primers, and peaceful images from Earth. The response was immediate. The main screen flickered, and then showed the inside of the alien vessel. The crew of the Pathfinder gasped collectively. The alien was tall, with a hard outer shell that reminded Kim of Earth insects. It had 4 arms and what seemed to be breathing tubes on its neck. When it spoke, a translator program tried to make sense of the sounds. "Unknown vessel. You have entered Viridian space. Submit to boarding and classification." Dr. Song stepped forward. "This is Dr. Jian Song of Earth. We come in peace and friendship. We did not know this area belonged to anyone." The alien's head tilted. "I am Admiral Taeho of the Viridian Hegemony. Your ignorance is noted but irrelevant. All new species must be evaluated for potential integration or threat assessment. We would be happy to establish diplomatic relations," Captain Kim said, joining Song. "Perhaps we could arrange a proper meeting with representatives from both our peoples." The alien made a sharp clicking sound. "Primitive species do not dictate terms. You have 2 time units to power down your systems and prepare for boarding. Resistance will be met with force." The screen went dark. "Red alert," Kim ordered immediately. "All crew to battle stations. Security teams to potential breach points." "Captain," Taemin said, voice tight with concern. 6 small craft have launched from the alien vessel. They appear to be boarding pods." Throughout the ship, red lights flashed and alarms sounded. Crew members ran to their positions, some afraid but all determined. In the armory, Security Chief Ji-won Kong distributed weapons to her team. "I don't think they're coming for tea," she said grimly. The first impact shook the ship as a boarding pod attached itself to the outer hull. Metal screamed as cutting tools began to burn through. "All non-combat personnel to safe zones," Kim ordered through the ship-wide communication system. "This is not a drill. We are being boarded by unknown hostiles." In the cargo bay, the first section of hull gave way with a shower of sparks. Armed Viridian soldiers pushed through the opening, weapons ready. They expected fear and surrender from the primitive humans. Instead, they found Security Chief Kong and her team waiting, pulse rifles aimed and ready. The first contact between humanity and the Viridian hegemony had gone very wrong. Now, the real test would begin. The first Viridian soldiers through the breach in Cargo Bay 3 moved with confidence. Their hard exoskeletons gleamed under the emergency lights, and their forearms each held advanced weapons. They expected easy victory against what their reports called primitive bipeds. Security Chief Ji-won Kong crouched behind a stack of supply crates, watching the aliens enter. She had positioned her team carefully around the large space. 10 years in Earth's special forces had taught her patience. She waited until 6 Viridians had entered before touching her wrist communicator. "Now," she said quietly. The cargo bay lights suddenly went out. In the darkness, the security team activated their night vision goggles. The Viridians hesitated, confused by the sudden blackness. That moment of confusion was all Kong needed. "Fire," she ordered. Pulse rifles discharged from multiple positions. Blue energy bolts hit the first 3 Viridians before they could react. The aliens fell heavily to the deck. The others quickly sought cover, returning fire with weapons that sprayed some kind of acid. "Keep moving," Kong called to her team. "Don't stay in one place." On the bridge, Captain Dae-won Kim monitored the situation throughout the ship. 3 separate boarding parties had breached the hull at different points. The Pathfinder shook as the main Viridian ship fired warning shots across their bow. "Engineering reports the aliens are trying to access our main computer systems," Lieutenant Sun-ho Lee reported from his station. "They've brought specialized equipment." "Activate Atlas defense protocols," Kim ordered. Atlas was the ship's artificial intelligence system. As the Viridians attempted to hack into the ship's computers, Atlas responded with sophisticated countermeasures that no human could have programmed quickly enough. In engineering, Chief Engineer Do-young Choi watched in satisfaction as the alien devices connected to their systems suddenly sparked and went dead. The 2 Viridians trying to hack the ship's controls stepped back in surprise. "Your technology is more advanced than we expected," one of them said in a clicking, translated voice. Choi smiled grimly. "That's not the only thing you've underestimated," he replied, as security officers emerged from hidden access panels behind the aliens. Throughout the ship, the human crew demonstrated skills that shocked the Viridians. The aliens had expected to find a frightened, disorganized response. Instead, they encountered coordinated resistance from crew members who seemed prepared for exactly this situation. In the medical bay, Dr. Min Ji-yoon had transformed the space into both a treatment center and a defensive position. As she worked to stabilize an injured crew member, she called out to her assistant. "Jun-ho, they're coming down the corridor. Activate the biofield." Jun-ho pressed a series of commands on a wall panel. Instantly, the doorway to the medical bay shimmered with a barely visible energy field. When 2 Viridian soldiers tried to push through, they collapsed, their nervous systems temporarily overloaded. "The biofield won't hold them long," Dr. Yoon said, finishing a pressure bandage on her patient. "But it gives us time to prepare." On Deck 4, Communications Officer Hyun-ji Park worked frantically to maintain the ship's internal communications while the battle raged. A loud explosion shook her station as Viridians blasted through a nearby bulkhead. "Bridge! We have another breach on Deck 4, she reported, ducking under her console as acid spray melted the wall beside her. Captain Kim's voice came through her earpiece. "Hang on, Park. Help is coming." Moments later, the ship's environmental controls for that section activated. Emergency fire suppressant foam filled the corridor, hardening almost instantly around the Viridian boarding party. Their movements slowed, then stopped as the quick-setting foam trapped them. Park peered over her console at the now immobilized aliens. "That was impressive," she whispered. In the cargo bay, Security Chief Kang's team had successfully contained the first boarding party. 3 Viridians were dead, 2 wounded, and 1 trapped. Kang approached the captured alien, her pulse rifle trained on its head. "Why did you attack us?" she demanded. The Viridian's breathing tubes expanded and contracted rapidly. "All new species must be classified and controlled. It is the way of the hegemony." "Well, how would you classify us now?" Kang asked, gesturing to the alien's fallen comrades. Before the Viridian could answer, Kang's communicator beeped. "Chief, we have 2 more boarding pods attaching to the hull near the shuttle bay," a voice reported. "On my way," Kang replied. She looked at her team. "Secure the prisoner and let's move. This isn't over." Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out as the human crew fought with unexpected skill and determination. The Viridians found themselves facing opponents who used the ship's systems against them in creative ways. Air pressure would suddenly drop in corridors where aliens gathered. Gravity would increase or decrease without warning. Maintenance robots were reprogrammed to interfere with the boarders. On the bridge, Captain Kim received reports from all sections of the ship. They were holding their own, but he knew they couldn't keep fighting forever. "Get me a communication channel to their ship," he ordered. When the Viridian admiral appeared on screen, Kim noticed a change in the alien's posture. There was tension in the way it held its 4 arms now. "Your boarding parties have failed," Kim said simply. Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss those diplomatic relations. The admiral's breathing tubes contracted. This outcome was unexpected. "Your species requires further study." As Kim began to respond, alerts sounded on the tactical station. "Captain, they're launching more boarding pods." The second wave of the assault was about to begin, but now the humans knew what they were facing. And the Viridians were starting to realize that attacking this human ship had been a terrible mistake. The second wave of Viridian boarding parties found the humans better prepared than the first. Chief Engineer Du Young Choi had been working without rest for 18 hours straight, moving throughout the ship to repair critical systems and create new defenses. His face was streaked with grease and sweat, his uniform torn at the shoulder where a piece of shrapnel had grazed him. Yet he showed no signs of stopping as he crawled through a narrow maintenance tunnel on Deck 5. "How much farther?" asked Technician Min-soo, who followed behind him carrying tools and parts. "Just ahead," Choi replied, his voice hoarse from breathing recycled air. "If we can reroute power through this junction, we can electrify the hull plates in Section 7. That should discourage our visitors from cutting through there." Min-soo looked at his senior officer with concern. "Sir, you haven't rested since the attack began. Even with stims, you must be approaching your limits." Choi paused in his work and gave a tired smile. "When this is over, I'll sleep for a week. Right now, our people need these defenses." He resumed working, connecting cables and rerouting power systems with practiced hands that somehow remained steady despite his exhaustion. 3 decks below, Security Chief Ji-won Kong had set up an impromptu command center in the auxiliary weapons control room. A captured Viridian officer was secured to a chair nearby, watching with wide compound eyes as the humans coordinated their defense. "They're targeting life support systems on Deck 3, reported one of Kang's team. Team Blue is engaged in holding position." Khan nodded and updated the tactical display on her tablet. She had taken a hit from a Viridian weapon 2 hours earlier, and her left arm was now wrapped in a medical bandage. Still, she moved with purpose, showing no sign that the injury bothered her. The Viridian prisoner clicked its mandibles in what the translator indicated was confusion. "Your physical endurance exceeds our intelligence reports," it said finally. "How are you still functioning at combat efficiency with such injuries? How is your engineer still working after so many hours?" Kong glanced at the alien. "Humans are persistence predators," she explained simply. "On our world, we evolved to keep going when other animals would quit. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion, even if the hunt took days. Inefficient, the Viridian commented. But effective, Kong replied with a grim smile. Especially now. In the medical bay, Dr. Min Ji-yoon worked feverishly to save the life of a young ensign who had been hit by Viridian acid weapons. The young woman's breathing was labored, her skin burned where the acid had touched her. Hand me the synthetic skin applicator, Dr. Yoon ordered a medical assistant. Her hands were steady despite having performed 3 emergency surgeries already. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, but her focus never wavered. Doctor, there's another wave of wounded coming, called a nurse from the doorway. At least 5 more casualties. Dr. Yoon nodded without looking up. Prepare the secondary treatment area. And get me another dose of focus enhancers. The nurse hesitated. That's your 3rd dose in 12 hours, doctor. The recommended limit is. I know the limits, Dr. Yoon interrupted. But those people need me alert. I'll deal with the side effects later. On the bridge, Captain Daewon Kim coordinated the ship's overall defense. A small wound on his forehead had stopped bleeding but left a trail of dried blood down the side of his face. He had not left his post since the attack began. Captain, reported Communications Officer Hyun-ji Park, I've analyzed their communication patterns. They seem genuinely surprised by our resistance. They keep referring to us as biological anomalies in their internal messages. Kim nodded thoughtfully. They expected us to be weak because our technology isn't as advanced as theirs. They don't understand that technology isn't everything. Just then, the ship rocked violently as the main Viridian vessel fired again, this time hitting their engines. Engine room reports power fluctuations, Lieutenant Sunho Lee called out. Chief Choi is rerouting systems, but we're losing thrust capability. Kim's expression hardened. They're trying to cripple us. Tactical, target their weapons systems with everything we have left. The tactical officer looked uncertain. Sir, our weapons are significantly outmatched. They think they know what we're capable of, Kim replied. Let's show them how wrong they are. Fire when ready. Throughout the ship, human crew members pushed themselves beyond normal limits. A security team that had been fighting for hours without rest set up an ambush in a cargo hold. Engineers worked through injuries to keep systems operational. Even the science team had adapted their research equipment into makeshift weapons. In one corridor, a young botanist named Ji-hoon had repurposed plant growth accelerators to fill an entire section with rapidly growing vines that entangled a Viridian assault team. Next to him, an astrophysicist used modified gravity sensors to create localized gravity fluctuations that disoriented the aliens. The Viridian commander, watching the battle unfold from their own ship, could not understand how these humans continued to fight effectively despite injuries, exhaustion, and being outnumbered. Their biological profiles had suggested they would be easy to subdue fragile creatures with obvious physical limitations. What the Viridians hadn't counted on was the human ability to endure, to adapt, and to keep fighting long past when logic said they should have surrendered. It wasn't just technology or tactics that the aliens faced now, it was the weaponized human condition itself, the result of evolution on a harsh world where survival often meant refusing to give up even when all seemed lost. And for the first time, the Viridian commander felt something unfamiliar, doubt about the outcome of what should have been a simple conquest. 26 hours after the initial attack, the tide began to turn. Captain Daewon Kim stood on the bridge of the HSS Pathfinder, surveying the damage reports on his tablet. His uniform was torn and stained, his face marked with exhaustion, but his eyes remained sharp and determined. Status report, he ordered, his voice rough from giving commands for over a day straight. We've secured decks 3 through 7, replied Security Chief Ji-won Kong through the comm system. The last boarding party in engineering has been neutralized. 3 prisoners taken. Excellent work, Chief. Kim turned to Communications Officer Hyun-ji Park. What about the Viridian command ship? Park studied her console, brushing a strand of hair from her face. They've stopped firing, Captain. They're holding position about 10,000 kilometers off our starboard side. Kim nodded slowly. The Viridians had expected an easy victory over what they considered a primitive species. Instead, they had met fierce resistance that had cost them dearly. Now was the time to press their advantage. "Is the communication system still working?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Basic functions are operational." "Good. Prepare to broadcast on all frequencies. I want every ship in this sector to see what happens when you attack a human vessel." While the bridge crew worked to set up the broadcast, Lieutenant Junho Bei gathered a small team in the armory. 6 security officers checked their weapons and equipment as Bei outlined his plan. "The Viridians have a command pod still attached to our hull near Airlock 4. It contains their boarding operation controls and likely valuable intelligence." Bei pointed to a schematic on the wall screen. "We're going to take it." One of the younger officers looked uncertain. "Sir, we've been fighting for over a day. Are we in any condition to launch an offensive?" Bei smiled grimly. "The Viridians are asking themselves the same question about us. That's why they won't expect this." The team moved quietly through the damaged corridors of the ship, using service tunnels to approach Airlock 4 undetected. When they reached the airlock, they could see the attached Viridian pod through the small viewport, a beetle-like structure fastened to the Pathfinder's hull. "Suit up," Bei ordered. The team donned their space armor quickly, checking each other's seals. "Remember," Bei said as they prepared to open the airlock, "we want prisoners and data. Use stun settings unless absolutely necessary." When the airlock cycled open, the team pushed out into space. Using magnetic boots to stay attached to the hull, they approached the Viridian command pod from an angle its sensors couldn't cover. They used a captured Viridian access tool to override the pod's outer door. The Viridians inside were completely surprised. They had been monitoring the human ship's defenses, not expecting the humans to counterattack. In the close quarters of the pod, the fight was brief and decisive. Within minutes, Bei's team had secured the pod and its 4 Viridian officers. "Captain," Bei reported through his comb, "we've captured the command pod intact. Their systems are still active, and we have 4 high-ranking prisoners." On the bridge, Captain Kim allowed himself a small smile. "Well done, Lieutenant. Bring your prisoners to the bridge. I want them here for my broadcast." 30 minutes later, the captured Viridian commander stood on the Pathfinder's bridge, flanked by security officers. The alien's posture showed what the humans had learned to recognize as shock and dismay. "You primitive species was supposed to submit," the commander said, its translator rendering the clicks and whistles into flat English. "No newly discovered race has ever resisted the hegemony so effectively." "Perhaps that says more about the hegemony than it does about us," Kim replied calmly. He turned to Park. "Are we ready to broadcast?" "Yes, Captain. Channel open, broadcasting on all frequencies. The signal will reach at least 6 nearby star systems." Kim straightened his uniform as best he could and faced the camera. Behind him stood his bridge crew, battered but unbowed, and the captured Viridian officers. "This is Captain Dae-Won Kim of the Earthship Pathfinder. 26 hours ago, we were attacked without provocation by forces of the Viridian hegemony when we refused to surrender our ship and crew." Kim's voice was steady and clear. "What you are seeing is the result of that attack. The Viridians learned that humans do not surrender easily, and that technology alone does not determine the outcome of battle." The camera panned across the bridge, showing the damaged systems, the exhausted but determined human crew, and the captured Viridians. To any species receiving this transmission, humanity comes in peace. We seek friendship and cooperation with all intelligent life. But let the fate of this Viridian assault force serve as a message to any who would mistake our peaceful intentions for weakness. Kim walked to the Viridian commander. "Your ships are free to recover your surviving forces and return to your territory. Take this message back to your hegemony. Earth stands ready for peaceful contact, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." The broadcast ended, but the message continued to spread across the sector. On distant worlds, beings watched in amazement as the small human ship, outgunned and outnumbered, stood victorious against a force that many had learned to fear. In the silence that followed, the Viridian commander looked at the human captain with new understanding. "Your species will be reclassified in our databases," it said simply. "The hegemony has made a significant error in judgment." "The first of many, if you continue to judge others by your standards alone," Kim replied. "Now, shall we discuss the terms of your withdrawal?" 3 months after the Pathfinder incident, Captain Daewon Kim stood before the Earth Defense Council in the Grand Meeting Hall of New Geneva. The room was filled with military officers, government officials, and diplomats from across Earth's colonies. Behind him, a large screen showed images of the Pathfinder, now fully repaired and docked at the orbital station above. "The recording of our encounter with the Viridian hegemony has spread faster than we could have anticipated," Kim explained, his voice steady and clear. 6 previously unknown civilizations have contacted Earth in the past month alone. All share concerns about Viridian expansion. Admiral Jae-hwan, head of the Defense Council, leaned forward in his chair. "And what do these civilizations want from us, Captain?" "Alliances, Admiral. They've watched humans fight off an enemy that has dominated their regions for centuries." Kim's expression remained professional, but there was pride in his eyes. "The Pathfinder's stand has changed how these species view humanity. We're no longer seen as newcomers to be ignored or potential conquests. We're seen as potential protectors." On the screen behind him, the images changed to show representatives of these new alien species, beings with diverse forms and features, all reaching out to humanity after centuries of isolation or fear. "The Council has reviewed your full report," said Counselor Min Jae, a stern-faced woman with silver hair. "Your actions during the crisis were exemplary, Captain. However, we must consider the broader implications. We have inadvertently announced our presence to the galaxy in a very dramatic fashion." Kim nodded. "Yes, Counselor. But I believe the alternative would have been worse. Had we surrendered, Earth would now be classified as a subject world of the hegemony." Across the galaxy, in a system far from Earth, another meeting was taking place. In the Great Hall of the Viridian High Command, Admiral Taeho stood before the Supreme Council, his posture rigid with tension. "Explain again," demanded the Supreme Leader, "how a single ship of a previously unknown species defeated our elite boarding forces." Taeho's breathing tubes contracted with discomfort. "The humans possess unusual biological traits, Supreme Leader. Their endurance exceeds anything in our databases. They continued fighting effectively despite injuries and exhaustion that would incapacitate most species." "And their technology?" asked another council member. "Less advanced than ours in many areas, but more sophisticated than we initially believed. Their AI systems, in particular, demonstrated unexpected adaptability." Taeho paused. "But it was not their technology that defeated us. It was their spirit." The Supreme Leader's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Spirit does not win battles, Admiral." "In this case, Supreme Leader, I must respectfully disagree." The council chamber fell silent at this unusual challenge. Taeho continued, "We have revised our expansion protocols as a result of this encounter. All vessels are now instructed to avoid human ships entirely. The resource expenditure of engaging them is prohibitive. On a distant trading world called Zoltan, in a crowded marketplace bar, beings from a dozen different species gathered around a viewscreen. The recording of the Pathfinder's battle played again. It had become something of a sensation in this part of the galaxy. "Watch this part," said a Zoltanian trader, pointing with one of his tentacles. "See how the humans counter the third boarding wave with improvised weapons? My cousin trades with a world near where this happened. He says the Viridians have pulled back their border patrols in that entire sector." "I heard the humans are seeking allies," said another patron, a scaled being from a world that had long lived in fear of Viridian expansion. "My government has already sent representatives to their world." In Earth's orbit, Captain Han-Son walked the corridors of the HSS Dauntless, a new vessel built with lessons learned from the Pathfinder incident. The ship was larger, better armed, but still primarily designed for exploration and diplomacy. Song stopped at a memorial plaque near the bridge, which honored the 7 crew members of the Pathfinder who had died defending their ship. Her fingers traced the names gently. "Captain," called her first officer, "the diplomatic team has arrived. They're ready for the mission briefing." Son nodded and turned away from the memorial. "Tell them I'll be there shortly." As she walked toward the briefing room, she passed crew members who had served on the Pathfinder. They had a certain look in their eyes now, a quiet confidence that had spread throughout Earth's space forces. Later, as the Dauntless prepared for launch, Captain Song addressed her crew through the ship-wide communication system. "We carry humanity's message to the stars," she said, her voice calm but powerful. "We come in peace, but as the Viridians learned, never mistake our peaceful intentions for weakness." The incident would be remembered across countless worlds as the moment when the galaxy learned a crucial lesson: assaulting a human ship is a terrible mistake. For humanity, it marked the beginning of their true emergence onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors, but as a species that others would think twice about threatening. And throughout the stars, the name Pathfinder became synonymous with unexpected strength and the dangers of underestimating a species based on appearances alone.